Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Republican Congressman Ed Royce of California, is with us. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us. What do you make of this news? First reported by Barbara Starr at the Pentagon that one of these brothers actually went to Yemen and trained with al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP as it's called.
And this is going to be the big question in France. If you've got 5,000 jihadists and you're keeping track, and they're French nationals, this is the biggest problem for them, and they're returning to France, and then you're trying to monitor them. What steps can you take to make certain that either you're not allowing them to come back into the country after they've taken training by al-Qaeda in Yemen, as this young man did? These pose very real questions for France, because they're dealing with French citizens. We don't have a problem commensurate with that. We have maybe a couple of hundred fighters.
That's a lot.
But in all of Europe, there's 15,000.
Yeah, there's a lot more in Europe, but there's still a few hundred potential terrorists in the United States, and that's a serious problem.
Right.
But is it the sense that this one brother, when he was in Yemen, when he was with AQAP, al-Qaeda, the Arabian Peninsula, was actually trained and then sent back to France to engage in terror? Was this a coordinated AQAP operation?
Clearly, to me, to have the type of training he had and to have had the hit put out by al-Qaeda in Yemen against the editor, and then to have it carried out, and to have him take credit for it and give that credit to al-Qaeda Yemen when he was carrying out the operation, it's very clear to me. The problem for the United States I see here, Wolf, is, as I said earlier, we only had a couple of hundred that are operating, but a French national's passport and visa can be used to come to the United States.
You don't need a visa if you have a French passport. You can just fly into Washington Dulles Airport or JFK or LAX and go wherever you want.
So that's what multiplies our problem.
Should that be changed? Because some of your colleagues are saying the U.S. should take another look at this non-visa requirement for allies like France or other countries in Europe.
Or work very, very closely on this issue of the no-fly list with the FBI on what we can do to actually get all of the data from the Europeans in terms of whatever we have on any French national or German national, etc., who is doing that type of training or going out to fight with ISIS, because them returning to Europe is a direct threat to them eventually, potentially coming here.
Our justice reporter, Evan Perez, broke the news that these two brothers, Sharif and Saeed Kawashi, that they actually were on the U.S. no-fly list.
Yes.
So had they tried to come into the United States, what would have happened?
See, that's the good news. They would have been prevented. And likewise, one of the things our committee is working on right now is a change in the law so that we can give more authority or responsibility to the Secretary of State to remove the passport, basically, of a U.S. citizen who is a national security risk because he wants to go and train with them.
All right, so we know one of these brothers was in Yemen,
right,
presumably with AQAP, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Was he also, or the other brother, or both, at one point in Iraq and Syria, based on what you know?
From what I've heard, in terms of the connection with Syria, what I'd heard is that one of the brothers had been in Syria. And this is going to be a real problem for France, because France and the United States were the first two countries into Syria. And so you can imagine the blowback within France, given the French contingent in Syria and what the French are doing right now across North Africa. They pushed al-Qaeda out of Mali with our help, but it was their troops that did it, the French Foreign Legion and French military. And so there's tremendous blowback from radical Islamists against the French government.
I know a lot of these terror groups have applauded this terror operation in Paris, but so far, based on what I've heard, no one has actually claimed responsibility. Is that true?
Well, I would put it this way. If the man carrying out the attack claims it for al-Qaeda Yemen, I think
what he supposedly, according to an eyewitness who survived the attack, heard him say that.
Yes, and I think you can credit it on the basis of that. That would be my judgment.
So the working assumption, the U.S. working assumption, is that this is an al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula operation.
We in the committee believe that, yes.
In the House Foreign Affairs Committee. All right, Mr. Chairman, I want you to stand by. We have more questions to discuss. This is critically important information we're sharing with our... We're going to take a quick break. Much more coming in. There's new information coming in. Stay with us. You're in the Situation Room.